Today we're going to talk about how to use a quadratic formula when solving quadratic equations. The formula that is used to solve quadratic equations is x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Before you use the quadratic formula, you got to make sure that your quadratic equations are in standard form. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. If you have the equal to 0, then you are in standard form. Our first problem here is 3x squared plus 8x equals 35. Now, looking at what we were just talking about with the standard form of a quadratic equation, there is no equals 0. So we have to make sure we're in standard form. So we must put this equal to 0. So it will say 3x squared plus 8x minus 35 equal to 0. We had to move the 35 on the other side of the equal sign and then set it equal to 0. So now, once we're in standard form, we need to label our a, which is 3, the b, which is 8, and c is now the negative 35. We're going to use these three pieces here in our quadratic formula. So remember, our quadratic formula was negative b, use parentheses, which is 8, plus or minus square root, then it's b squared, make sure you're using parentheses, minus 4ac. Again, make sure everything is being used and have parentheses. All over 2a. So now let's start simplifying this. So we're going to start simplifying everything we have, which we have negative 8 on the outside, plus or minus square root. 8 squared is 64. Negative 4 times 3 times negative 35 is positive 420 all over 2 times 3, which is 6. So from here, we're going to simplify our radical. So going up here, so we have step 1, step 2, and then step 3 will come up here. So negative 8 plus or minus square root 420 plus 64, 484 all over 6. Okay, now step 4, we're going to simplify the square root of 484. So we have negative 8 plus or minus 22 over 6. Okay, so now we're going to separate our answer. So since our radical was gone, since we square root of 484 is 22, now we're going to have two answers. We're always going to have two answers since we're dealing with quadratics. So our first answer we're going to obtain by taking negative 8 plus 22 over 6, and we're going to take negative 8 minus 22 over 6 equals. Okay, so we have negative 8 plus 22. That right there is going to give us 14 over 6, and then 14 over 6 reduces to 7/3. So 7/3 is one of our answers. Negative 8 minus 22 over 6 will have negative 30 over 6, and that reduces to negative 5. So 7/3 and negative 5 are the solutions to this quadratic equation. So example 2 is negative 2x squared equals negative 2x plus 3. Before we solve using the quadratic formula, we got to make sure that we're in standard form, which we're not. So we need to move the negative 2x over and the 3 over. So it's going to look like this. Negative 2x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals 0. So once we're there, now we can label our a, which is negative 2, our b, which is positive 2, and c, which is negative 3. So in our formula, it's going to say negative b, which was 2, plus or minus square root b squared, 2 squared, minus 4ac. All we're doing is just substituting into the formula, making sure we're using parentheses, all over 2a. So let's start simplifying this. On the outside, we have negative 2, plus or minus. In the radical, we have 2 squared, which is 4. Negative 4 times negative 2, which is positive 8. 8 times negative 3 is negative 24, all over negative 4. So this was step 1, step 2, and step 3. We're going to start simplifying our radical. So we have negative 2 plus or minus square root negative 20 all over negative 4. So if you recall back when we were working with our negative numbers and our radicals, what we have here, we're going to have an imaginary number. So when we're simplifying this radical 20, we need to consider that I that we're going to use because we have a negative under the radical. So when we simplify 20, we're going to have 5 and 4, 2 and 2. So we're going to have 2i radical 5. So step 4, we have negative 2 plus or minus 2i radical 5 all over negative 4. So now we need to simplify this. To simplify this, we need to separate our fractions. So we have negative 2 over negative 4 plus or minus 2i radical 5 over negative 4. So our answer is going to equal negative 2 over negative 4 is positive 1/2 plus or minus. We are going to have the 2 and the 4 here to reduce to a 2 and a 1. So we have this negative right here actually takes care of that. So we have 1/2 I radical 5. Do not forget to take the quiz at the end of this video.